Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel, Under the Needle. I am doing something a little bit different today. I had been asked a few weeks ago, somebody had asked to see my sewing room, and I could not do that because I literally had stuff everywhere. So I put this sewing room together back in 2018, the beginning of 2018. I had an empty room in the house and I converted it to my sewing room. And so I would go to work and I would come home and I would come in here and I would do my sewing. But then the pandemic hit and I started working from home. And so I put my work computer and monitors in here as well. And so now instead of me coming in here after work and just doing some sewing, now I'm literally in this room all day. So I come in here about 9:30 in the morning and I work until about 6:30 and then I just kind of stay in here. Like I just stay in here and sometimes I sew and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I look at patterns, sometimes I watch YouTube videos, but I basically stay in here all day until my fiance gets home. And then, sometimes I'll go hang out with him. And that's how I spend my day. So I'm literally in one room for like, 80, 90% of my waking hours. And I am a messy person. Like I am naturally untidy. Okay. Like I don't like to leave food and stuff like that, but I leave things. Like anywhere I go, I leave a trail of things. And before, when I only used this room just for sewing, yeah, sometimes I'd have too many projects going on and things might get a little bit messy, but I just straighten it up and clean it up and because it's basically just sewing projects that were hanging around. And so I'd, put them back in their appropriate box and put them back on the shelf, and then my room is okay again. And, for me, tidy is not going to be what it is for like a neat freak. Tidy for me just means that when I want to iron, I have a space to iron. And when I want to use my cutting mat, I have a space to use my cutting mat. And when I want to sit down at my sewing machine, I have a place to sit down at my sewing machine. And there's not, a bunch of things surrounding me, or I don't have to move things out of the way. But because I started spending so much time in this room and I'm naturally untidy, then it started to become more than just sewing. Like all of my mail and just things from my non-sewing life started ending up in here because now I'm in here so much. And I had gotten to a point where it got difficult to create because every time I wanted to do something, I had to move something out of the way. So I had started, just organizing some things and cleaning up some things about a week ago. And then I was inspired to finish today because I was on Facebook and I was in one of my groups and somebody had said, "Hey, I want to see everybody's sewing space." And Krista Watson, who I adore, I didn't even know she was in that group, but she posted her fantastic sewing room. And if you've ever watched a Krista Watson video, if you ever watched her being immaculately tidy would not be surprising at all. I mean, she is so high energy that it does not surprise me at all that she is one of those perfectly in order, a place for everything, everything in its place type of people. Like, and that's how her sewing room was. It was so tidy and it was so colorful. That would never work for me. It would be too clean for someone like me. I'd be like, it's too clean. I can't. Um, but I was scrolling through the pictures and looking at other people's spaces, and most people's spaces were pretty tidy, and there were a couple that were like mine. But there was one picture that caught my eye because a lady said, she goes, "Well, here's mine. It was a little bit messy right now." And at the time, I was literally sitting at my sewing machine, and I looked to my right, and looked at my space versus her space. And I immediately took a picture and responded to her. I was like, no, that is not messy. This is messy. And I sent her a picture. And she responded back that she read that and she just busted out laughing. But it did inspire me to kind of at least straighten up a little bit. It is not where it needs to be because I kind of cheated. Like I just have stuff like stashed where it's out of my way, but I need to go through it and reconcile it and throw away what's trash and store what are important papers that I need to keep. But I feel like it's at least okay enough for me to show you without me being like absolutely humiliated about like how messy my space was. So here we go. I'm gonna flip the camera around and I'm gonna show you guys, and I'm gonna try to keep this as straight as possible. Okay, so and this is where I sew. This is my sewing machine. I do sometimes have a beverage when I sew, but I usually stick to clear beverages, so like LaCroix and bubbly and stuff like that. I don't normally do any kind of colored drinks in here. This is where I keep like my ginormous roll of batting. Walmart had a sale on warm and natural batting. This piece does have like a little spot on it, but I didn't care because it was literally like $1 a yard. Those are the pool noodles that I use when I baste sometimes. And that's the chair. I've got some thread down there. I've got a shelf. Those are some works in progress over there. One of them I have all the blocks done. I just need to piece the rows together, and I need to um, you know, add the borders and stuff like that. There's one up there that's already quilted, but it just needs binding. So there's like four works in progress just over there in those three bins, and then that quilt that I need binding. So this over here, this is my design wall. You can see kind of behind the purple insulation, there's a piece of flannel back there. So that's kind of what I was using, but I wanted to kind of cover the flannel and put up a big design wall that kind of covered the whole wall. So my fiance is going to work on that for me. He has to remove the molding, and he's been so busy working lately. So um, we just haven't had an opportunity to do that. These are my larger rulers. I keep my larger rulers on the wall so that I can always find them. And then my smaller rulers are over here. We have another roll of batting here. This one's almost finished, so I just kind of left it out. Um, but this is where I keep like my smaller rulers. And then over here, I have my cutting table. Um, Down there's my spare machine. That's my Juki 2000 QI. And next to it is the machine that I used to sew on that I don't anymore. Not the machine, sorry, the sewing table that I used to use. So this is one I had picked up years and years ago at Walmart. And then during the pandemic, there was a lady that was selling her, what is that? I can't remember the brand name, but she was selling her table, her sewing table. And it it's one of those like fancy name brands that I can't think of right now. And it wasn't going to fit my machine, but I felt really confident about the the name brand, that it was going to be sturdy enough to handle my machine, even though it wasn't designed for my machine. So, so yeah, that's kind of where I do my cutting. And then I've just got some bins over there because I've always got stuff. And then there's like my shame down there. Not the batting rolls. I just ran out of space where I keep my batting to put those batting rolls. But my shame is over there in that that black kind of bin, that black container. Yeah, that's all my shame. That's all the stuff that was everywhere that I just kind of threw in some bins and threw in that black thing and just kind of was like, I'll get to it later. But my favorite part of the room is, of course, where I keep my sewing. I mean, where I keep my fabric. So this is where I keep. my most of my yardage. That bottom row is kind of all solids and blenders. The second row from the bottom is all batik yardage. And then the third row is just print yardage. Usually anything that's 2 yards or more will go there. Up on the top there, we have tons and tons of fat quarters. Um, my fat quarter collection's a little bit embarrassing because there's more. But these are all fat quarter bundles, and then in those pink bins, they're just kind of loose fat quarters or bundles that um, I might have taken out of the packaging and stuff like that. The batik ones are down here. So these two shelves on the bottom have the batik fat quarters. And I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of fat quarters. So let me step back again. And then over here, down here, um, we have more fat quarters. So on that bottom shelf, there's more fat quarters. The second shelf is really all layer cakes. Layer cakes and yeah, layer cakes. I have a lot of layer cakes. It's one of the reasons also why the room started to get out of control because my fabric buying and my fabric collecting took up all the space because I used to have space on these shelves. Um, but then I filled it all with fabric because that's what we do as quilters sometimes, right? And then of course we have more fat quarters there. Um, on this row here, we have additional fat quarters there, plus some charm packs. I try to keep some of my, my batting here. I try to keep the batting there, at least what will fit. Of course, it's not going to all fit, but any small packages of batting or any loose batting scraps, I kind of just shove them there. Over here, we have mostly half-yard cuts. That's what most of this collection here is. They're mostly half yards, except on the bottom shelf, there are some 2 yard cuts and some 1 yard cuts. And I just don't have space to put them on boards and put them with the other yardage. So I just folded them and put them there. Over here, that's the jelly roll collection over there. So we got some jelly rolls there. To the far left, on the top, we just have like some binders where I put patterns and just some miscellaneous like scrapbooking stuff. You can see a quilt that I'm working on that I need to finish quilting and bind. I've got some boxes over there that have patterns or projects that I haven't started yet, but maybe want to work. There's also boxes that contain works in progress. You can kind of see where I keep my books and magazines over there. And then this is where I work. So it's pretty tight in here. It's pretty tight. And then the last thing I have is kits. Sorry, you can see my glucose meter. Let me move this out your way. I'm not diabetic. I've just, sorry, my camera's all over the place. I'm trying to move this. I'm not diabetic. I just eat a certain way, and testing my blood sugar kind of helps me understand how different foods impact my body. So that's what that is. So here you can see kind of all of my kits. So kind of there on the top shelf, there's some different kits, some bag kits, some completed quilts, some pillow forms, and then on this row down here, you can kind of see kind of the rest of my kits. So, we kind of I'll just pan. So that's the fabric collection. I mean, there are some cabinets I have down underneath. And that's kind of where I stash some stuff too. That's where I stash like my spray starch. That's where my AccuQuilt dyes are. And that's also where I store my scrap fabric. My leftovers, that stuff is down there as well. So that's pretty much it. It's not a large room. You can see a quilt over there that I need to baste. But not a large room. just a space to do some cutting, and my fabric collection, my rulers, and then where I actually sit and do my sewing. So that's really it. So I hope that helps you kind of see where I'm doing the sewing. And yeah, let me know if you want to see anything else, or if you have any questions about anything you saw. Sorry, there's something on my lip there. Apologize for that. But that's all I've got for the moment, and I will see you next time.